So I just got back from a 5-mile run, and I was struggling on this run. This one was just not easy for me. It's hot, it's humid, typical conditions for the state of Florida where I live. And I got kind of stuck in my head. And for me, honestly, that's just not a good neighborhood. It's not a good place to be, but I was in there. And while I was in my head, I caught myself cataloging every shortcoming or mistake or failure that I've made in the past 25 years, okay? And that is a healthy list, to be sure. So I decided, all right, as long as I'm in here, as long as I'm stuck in my head, I'm cataloging these failures, maybe I should try to make something a little more productive out of this. Let me see if, instead of overanalyzing the failures, at least as it pertains to my life, can I figure out why? Because I believe, and I've said this before, that success leaves clues. Well, if that's true, the opposite must be true as well. So does failure. So I started thinking about it, and by the time the run was up, I think it was 47, 48 minutes. I'm going to post that run in just a minute or two on Strava and Instagram and Facebook, and it's all at Resolve Life Training. But at any rate, I came up with four things. These are the 4 things I believe in my life has led to every mistake, shortcoming, or failure that I've ever had. Now, I envision that if they've led to every single mistake or failure that I've ever made in my life, that some of these could possibly pertain to you as well. So I'm going to take about 3-4 minutes and I'm going to go over them, okay? Number 1, and I've prepared a graphic illustration for you. Number 1 is commitment. My entire life, I've kind of fancied myself as a gypsy, sort of a nomad, a jack of all trades. I've moved from town to town, city to state, across the country, back and forth. I've done probably 12 different types of jobs over the past 25 years. And I had assigned some kind of romantic gypsy notion to this. And while some of that may be true, it also meant that I never actually committed to anything. Okay? And really, if you're going to achieve mastery in anything, this is your first step. Actually, this is your second step. Number 1, you have to make a decision. Number 2, after you've made the decision, you must commit to the decision. Very rarely, if ever, have I actually committed to anything. I dabble. I did a little bit here, did a little bit there, did a little bit over here, came back here and played with this again, played with that. But I never actually picked one thing and committed to it. That's mistake number 1, okay? Now, on a few rare occasions, I did find some things that I enjoyed, not the least of which being running, okay? And I'll tell you a quick story. When I was 21 years old, I was in the United States Navy. I was stationed in Long Beach, California, and a chief that I worked for, a guy by the name of Bruce Morris, got me into running. For no other reason than help me drop a couple of pounds, maybe, and get off the ship on the weekends. Go out into town, meet some civilians, do some civilian activities, have fun away from the Navy. And I thought that was a good idea. So I started running with him. Now, in fact, I was a guy who was double fisting Big Macs and smoking Marlboro Reds like they were going out of style. And after 6 months of casually running, I turned in a 17-minute 5,000 meter race, a 5K, 17 minutes, at the age of 21. With little to no training, smoking Marlboro Reds, double fisting Big Macs, partying on the weekends, actually giving it nothing. That 17 minutes that as Chief Morris was very quick to tell me, I was only about 3.5, 4 minutes off a national caliber racing pace. Now, if you know anything about endurance running, endurance sports in general, people who are involved in endurance sports, and I suspect a lot of sports for that matter, it takes time for your muscles to mature. They really don't hit their stride until 29, 30, 31, 32. I was only 21 years old. That gave me at a minimum 10 years. Had I have committed to that, it's not entirely impossible that over the next 10 or 11 years, the next decade of laser-focused training, intensity, and commitment, it's not entirely possible that I could have reached a national caliber rank in running. I was running 5.5-minute miles at a conversational pace for me at the age of 20 with 6 months of half-assed, I don't even want to say training, just playing around with running so I could get off the boat on the weekends and go meet girls out in town at the races. You know, I'd eat a biscuit McMuffin before the race and wolf down a couple of Big Macs afterwards, and I was turning in a 17-minute 5,000. That was with absolutely no commitment whatsoever. What could I have done if I'd committed? Well, we'll never know. I've had about 27 years now to regret that decision. Let me tell you, if you can avoid 27 years of regret, I would advise it. It's not a lot of fun. Number 2, the few things that I did find that I like: fitness, running, biking, things that I have liked and stuck with on and off over the years. What I failed to do was bring in any form of discipline, okay? I never disciplined myself to do the training or the studying necessary to achieve mastery in any of it. I was always good. I've always been okay. But if you want to go from okay to excellent, you must have discipline. All right? It is absolutely necessary. Without discipline, you will go no farther. Now, over the years, I have actually had a little bit of discipline and say, okay, I'm going to train a little bit. And I would train a little bit. I would train for running. I would train for fitness, things of that nature. What I didn't have, and this is really important, was number 3. Consistency. I would get focused and disciplined for a while, and then I would lose it, come back, have to make all my gains again, get back up to where I was at, lose focus, stop for 6 months, come back, try to regain 6 months worth of lost fitness, get it back up to where I was. I would lose focus and stop again. I lacked consistency. Okay, that's 3 things. Excuse me, I should say 3 things. Now, it would be very simple to categorize those 3 things as very different, but I don't believe that's the case. I believe they were all caused, my lack of commitment, my lack of discipline, my lack of consistency, were all caused by one underlying force. And I believe in my heart that this is the most insidious thing that plagues mankind today. It is remarkable how many achievements have never been achieved, how many ideas have never come to realization, how many things have never been done because of this. Fear. Fear is the root cause for every failure, limitation, and I would submit mistake that I or you have ever made in your life. And it's mainly, there may be others, but there's 3 primary fears. Number 1, you have a fear of what other people think. That right there is enough to squash 90% of the great ideas that have never come to fruition in life. You're afraid what other people would think of them. Fear. Number 2, you are afraid to fail. Okay, that's a big one for me. You've heard me talk about the pros and cons list. You wrote down the pros, 1, the cons, 10, and you said that's it. I'm afraid there's too many cons, I'm going to fail. Number 3, and this has also been a player in my life, a fear of success. If I make it, I have seriously raised the expectations for me for the rest of my life. Okay, the term of my natural life, I'm going to be under closer scrutiny and have to work harder to maintain this level of success. That sounds like a nuisance. I don't want to mess with it. I'll settle. What I have now is good enough. Okay? The fear of what other people think, the fear, of failure, and the fear of success, I believe, has torpedoed 90% of the great ideas that you and I have never heard, the achievements that you and I have never achieved or seen. It is at the root of all the others. Okay? The fear of commitment, The fear of what it takes to discipline yourself. What are you going to have to lose to discipline yourself for greater gains down the road? The fear of having to do it all the time. What if I do this shit all the time and nothing comes of it? Fear. This is it. I don't know if this applies to you. I would envision that at least one, if not all of these, apply to you either to a small degree or a great degree. But that's it. That's what I came up with during my run. Okay? These are the things I need to focus on. These might be the things you need to focus on. I can't tell you that. But I wanted to put them out there. I wanted you to see. But I'm kind of proud of myself in one respect. I could have spent the entire hour wallowing in my failures, my shortcomings, and my mistakes. I could have done that. It would have been very simple to do. Okay? But I did turn that around and at least make a productive session out of it. I tried to attack the root. Why? Yes, I know I failed. Yes, I know I've made mistakes. Yes, I know I have shortcomings. But more importantly, why? What happened? What did or did I not do to get myself in that boat? I don't know. Maybe you haven't done that yet. Or even worse, maybe you don't realize you're there. Okay? It's possible. Look into it. But this is what I came up with today. Okay? And I rushed home and I prepared this graphic illustration for you. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the talk. All right? All right, until the next time, this is Michael with Resolve Life Training.